El Salvador has been parading daily Bitcoin buys like clockwork. One coin a day, every day, no matter what the IMF says. President Bukele even declared, "We're never stopping." But what if it's all a lie? A bombshell IMF report just dropped, and it claims those so-called purchases, they never happened. Just smoke, mirrors, and wallet shuffling. Is this the unraveling of Bitcoin's flagship nation? Or is the IMF taking a page straight out of Confessions of an Economic Hitman, executing another reputational hit on a nation that dared defy their control? And while the accusations fly, Bukele's doing something no one expected, teaming up with another IMF-controlled nation to spread Bitcoin adoption. So are we witnessing betrayal or brilliance? But yeah, let's dive into this IMF slash El Salvador stuff, because I don't know about you, but I don't know what to think of any of this. Like, it's very confusing. Like one group is saying one thing, one group is saying the other, and there's always a rebuttal on either side, and it's ping-ponging back and forth. So like who is BSing and who's not? So let's take a look at what's in front of us, and we're going to need some help from the comments section to hear what everybody's thinking here. But so here is a tweet from Joe Nakamoto. Now, he's not the first one to kind of notice what came out of this IMF report. It was highlighted by John Dennehy of Me Premier Bitcoin. And then Joe dove into this report, which, by the way, this report is damn near 150 pages, I think here. Yeah, 149 pages for this IMF report on El Salvador. So some of the key points here. Joe tweeted, as many suspected, the IMF report suggests rather that El Salvador has not been buying Bitcoin, just reshuffling it internally. The quote is, increases in Bitcoin holdings reflect the consolidation of Bitcoin across various government-owned wallets. Another quote, Chivo does not adjust its Bitcoin reserves. This leads to an increase in net public sector holdings. And then he also added, plus only teeny tiny top-ups are pre-approved to maintain a safety buffer. Establish a buffer of at least 3 million net of Chivo clients' deposits and the continuous QPC ceiling. So he says, pretty awkward to say the least. So here's the footnote here saying that that basically there's other government wallets that are not public, and that the one Bitcoin deposit every single day that's been tweeted by the Bitcoin office and touted by Bukele is just them moving one Bitcoin at a time from one wallet that they already own to that one to keep up the frequency, which would be crazy if that was true. And again, I kind of don't know. We'll get into that in a second. Again, this is interesting. They're talking about Chivo here. So Chivo, that is the government Lightning wallet that now has to be sold on the public market, because that's part of the condition of the IMF deal, that the government can't control that anymore. So Chivo does not adjust its Bitcoin reserves to reflect changes in clients' Bitcoin deposits. As a result, when Chivo clients' Bitcoin holdings decrease, and Chivo does not sell the corresponding amount of Bitcoin, this leads to an increase in net public sector holdings as defined by the TMU. Since program approval, these fluctuations have been minor and short-lived, resulting in deviations from the QPC ceiling no larger than 1% of total public sector Bitcoin holdings. Bitcoin holdings are monitored using signed statements. So a few details there, but basically they're saying if Chivo users sell Bitcoin, then there's potential for them to basically not actually sell the Bitcoin, like send them dollars, but then keep the Bitcoin, and then maybe use some of that to reallocate to the public wallet again, which is a wild accusation here. So again, and here's the establish a buffer. So Bitcoin, establish a buffer of at least 3 million equivalent between the level of public sector Bitcoin holdings, net of Chivo's clients, deposits denominated in Bitcoin, and the continuous QPC ceiling. So They're just saying that, hey, like they're not buying, they're just shuffling around stuff they already have. However, on the other side of this is what the IMF is saying. And I don't know about you, but I don't trust the IMF as far as I could throw them. So, so
Yeah, I was gonna say Satwise had a nice comment. I believe F the IMF was probably the right response.
Yeah, exactly. But okay, so Stacey Herbert, who's part of the leading up the Bitcoin office there down in El Salvador, she tweeted this like very shortly after this report broke and everybody started humming and hawing over it. She said, "I have some really bad news for the haters. Your pain is about to intensify." Now, is she referring to whether or not they're actually buying Bitcoin, whether or not the report is BS? I mean, there's not a whole lot of detail here, but there is some interesting action on behalf of El Salvador and Bukele that's going on that you wouldn't think would be going on in the face of, them bending the knee to the IMF. And that is alignment with Pakistan. Now, if you guys remember, Pakistan went to the Bitcoin conference in Vegas and announced, hey, we're going to do a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and we're also going to use our excess energy to mine Bitcoin. And then shortly thereafter, the IMF was like, oh, no, you're not. You're not allowed to do that with your own excess energy, which again is fucking insane that this unelected body could tell a nation what to do with their not like energy that was being used for something else or whatever, which already would be crazy. But to say like, hey, you have excess energy and you want to use it for something, we're going to tell you what you can and can't use the excess waste energy for. That is mind-numbingly crazy. Let me break this down for my fellow Bitcoiners. In just 8 weeks, I've seen a serious shift. More strength, more energy, and fast muscle gains. The reason? FITSCRIPT. They ran 124 biomarkers, blood, hormones, inflammation, and built a fully custom plan, nutrition, training, supplements. No guesswork, no templates. This is functional medicine meets precision fitness for high-performing men who want sovereignty over their health. If you care about optimization the way you care about your money, test, don't guess. Don't trust, verify. Hit the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen to check out FITSCRIPT and see what's possible. So anyways, what are they doing with El Salvador? So here it is, Pakistan's Special Assistant on Bitcoin. I'm not going to try that name, met with El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele, in San Salvador to discuss strategies for Bitcoin adoption and knowledge sharing. The president praised Bukele or rather the special assistant on Bitcoin praised Bukele for his forward-thinking leadership, highlighting Bukele's early commitment to Bitcoin. He's a leader from the future who saw the future first, because when it wasn't cool to back Bitcoin, he stood with conviction. Pakistan is looking to El Salvador's example. Amid an ongoing $7 billion IMF loan program, Pakistan is seeking to learn from El Salvador's approach to integrating Bitcoin into its national policy. The two countries formalized their collaboration by signing a letter of intent between El Salvador's Bitcoin office and the Pakistan Crypto Council. Now I'm going to skip over to this actual tweet. Again, Stacey Herbert right here with the Bitcoin office. Bitcoin office signed a letter of intent with the Pakistan Crypto Council today. And it says, the purpose of the letter of intent is to outline the mutual intention of the parties to explore and establish a strategic collaboration in the fields of Bitcoin education, Bitcoin mining. Remember, this is what the IMF said was a big no-no for Pakistan. Sovereign Bitcoin reserves. Again, IMF, no, don't buy and establish reserves, not allowed. And broader efforts to advance financial inclusion and digital economic empowerment through the responsible use of Bitcoin and decentralized technologies. That doesn't sound like backing down to me. Again, like I'm so torn. I feel like it's tough because inside of me says, don't trust politicians, but deeper inside of me says, but really don't trust the IMF. So like, Nathan, where are you at with this? How are you interpreting all this?
Man, there's so much to tease apart there, and I agree. It feels like there's just a wave of noise recently too, and a ton of distractions. Think Epstein. Like I have no idea what's going on. It's hard to discern between them. I will say, without giving it away, I maybe did a podcast today with somebody that talked a lot about the IMF. That'll be coming out later. We'll just call him A. Gladstein. But my two kind of main thoughts is that one, there's no way these two countries got together and did not also discuss their IMF loans in that situation as well.
Yeah.
Going back to, it's kind of a balance sheet movement game, which I suspect there's a lot of that going on. We're seeing people announcing that they're buying Bitcoin, but really it's just moving from one balance sheet to the other. There's no USD exchange, and that's why we see no changes in price. But I couldn't help but think about this as I was going through it there with you, is maybe this is quite simple. Maybe Bukele realized at some point in time that a lump sum payment tends to outperform DCA. He saw his opportunity. He smash bought a bunch of Bitcoin and was like, I'll just move that over later. I'm going to continue with this. I want people just to save and not speculate, but maybe he has just a big pile that he was sitting on and was like, yeah, I'll just move them over one at a time. It's not outside the realm of possibility. I really do like Max and Stacy. At least they're long time, very interesting characters here. So I'm curious to see what they have to say. It feels like this weird back and forth constantly. And really, I just don't know what to make of it. But I can tell, at least from what's going on there, I had this realization in the conversation today that the IMF wants to continue to have these countries in debt. That's their goal. They need to continue to re-up and refinance and keep them in debt. If somebody defaults on the debt, right, that's taking an asset off their balance sheet. That's no good. But at the same time, if somebody pays back the debt, that's also taking another asset off their balance sheet. So the IMF is directly threatened because if these guys are piling into Bitcoin, and we saw in other countries that maybe we'll talk about a little bit later, but if they're piling into the Bitcoin to the point where they could actually repay their IMF loans, they don't want that. They need to try and cut this out at the knees if they can. And anyways, it's a lot to tease apart. I want to stay on the optimistic side, but you should never trust a politician.
Yeah. Bitcoin Well is the best place to be buying and selling Bitcoin in Canada and the US. And now with Bitcoin Well Infinite, it's also the best place to be making large buys at their OTC desk of over $50,000. Their white glove service gives you fast transactions, no slippage, and the lowest fees. You can scan the QR code on the screen or simply head to bitcoinwell.com/BTC sessions to sign up today. And you can share your own personalized referral link to earn commissions.